The mind is a multifaceted mechanism, and dementia diminishes its function, recent memory mainly. Now, this has a huge impact on daily life because recent memory, present memory, we use in all our interactions and conversations all throughout the day. So if you haven't got it, it does impact markedly. But there are ways to compensate, a skill set which helps compensate for loss of recent memory in dementia. And they are observational skills, skills requiring calculation, reasoning skills, and reading skills. All of these skills help a lot to be able to compensate for the lack of memory in dementia. And everyone's an individual. Everyone, has certain interests and ways they go around and about things, and how they like to learn and need to learn, and their perspectives, etc. So you need to weigh that into the mix. But take, for example, observational skills. At the dementia unit I worked at, there was one particular resident who had the keenest observational skills. She'd wake up, first thing she'd do, and indeed all day, she'd go around the corridor, lounge, corridor, the walking circuit, and she'd observe every little thing that was going on. She's quite a small person, quiet voice, but she'd mutter away, quite clearly and lucid, a running commentary on everything she was observing. And she was the keenest of everyone. She would be the first one to observe a fall, a fight, anything aggro that happened. She'd report it to the front desk, tell the nurses what was going on. She was excellent, actually. She never got depressed, never got stressed. When her relatives came in with huge bags of chocolate, I don't know how she didn't have whatever through it, so much sugar in one big hit. She'd explain to them what had been happening at the unit, what was going on, and they totally loved it, entertaining. But she kept her cognition going, knowingly or unknowingly. And because of that, she had a very level, steady emotional state. I mean, even if others were fighting right next door to her, she'd say, oh, someone's banged me in the elbow, but I don't think they meant to, whether they did or not. And she was a character of the first order. Now, other dementia residents, all dementia residents have observational skills, but they can be honed and harnessed with conversation. So when you're sitting with your dementia resident, or if you're a carer with your patient, discuss what is before your very eyes in the here and now, because they can be present, they can use their intellect and intelligence in the present moment, view what's going on and discuss it with you. Yes, they may forget a second later because of recent memory loss, but in the present moment, they can discuss it with you, and it's good for their cognition and engagement. Now, take the skills of calculation, as in quizzes and crosswords. That's another skill set in itself, and one, if established lifelong, is very helpful to be able to continue that when coming into the dementia unit. And a number of the women particularly that I worked with could do quizzes very capably. They had, their piles of books with all their various quizzes. They'd fill out the lot. And Women's Weekly, Women's Day, and the press reading, the newspaper. So this was totally engaging their cognition, intellect, and intelligence. And because they'd done it before, they could keep up that habit. Though very difficult to initiate that if you haven't done it before in a dementia unit, if you've had that habit prior, continuing it. Now, thirdly, reasoning skills. Reasoning is a wonderful thing, of course, and workshops and good quality discussions and workshops stimulate reasoning. You've got to have interesting themes, interesting topics, lots of new input coming in, and then you'll be able to get the cognition of reasoning going, which is a very high level intellectual activity. And this was the main body of work that I've done in the two books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, everything in the description below. Now, reading. Some residents continue to be able to read well. interestingly enough, the school teachers I found were the ones that kept up their reading more than anyone, the nurses to a lesser extent. But with reading, it does take a lot of concentration. Probably 50% of dementia residents that I worked at could read, but that being the title in a newspaper, karaoke songs that they were familiar with, in a Women's Day magazine, front cover, that sort of limited reading. In terms of a whole full article in a magazine, 1 or 2 residents could do it, but not many. But to be able to read to whatever level helps enormously in a dementia unit. If you can read the front page of the newspaper, if you can read the karaoke songs and sing along with everyone, if you can read the menu and what you're going to be eating for that week, it's very good for cognition reading. But the thing is with reading, of course, you need to have material to read and new material to read. So it's interesting and engaging. And there's not much reading material at dementia units. So it is important that dementia residents have a good lot of quality reading in their room or a little library set up at the unit if they can read, to stimulate, harness, re-educate, or at least maintain their reading ability. So these are the ways to be able to activate cognition, keep the intellect going, compensate for lack of memory, and the skill set to keep it going. So thank you for your looks, likes, please subscribe.